Good afternoon. It's Friday, October 2nd, and you are tuned to IBA News broadcasting from Jerusalem. Thousands of people gathered this morning to take part in the funeral of Eitam and Naama Henkin, who were shot to death last night in a vicious terror attack near the settlement of Itamar in Samaria. The couple were murdered by Palestinian terrorists as they were driving home to the settlement of Neriah with their 4 children in the back seat. The 4 kids, aged 4 months to 9 years old, managed to escape with little physical harm. President Reuven Rivlin, Minister Uri Ariel, MK Tzipi Livni, and Eli Yishai were among those gathered at the Har Menuchot Cemetery in Jerusalem. Addressing the huge crowd, President Rivlin said it was impossible to stand silent in the wake of a mother and father who were brutally torn apart from their children. Rivlin warned, "We are facing a violent wave of terror, which Israel will relentlessly continue to battle." He also spoke of the state's sovereignty over the West Bank, stressing that settlement construction would continue. "We never built because of terror, and we shouldn't stop building because of it," he said. Rivlin told the mourners that Naama Henkin had personally written him a letter following the murder of Danny Gonen in late June, where she warned of the security situation in the West Bank and its victims. And at the end, she signed it as a citizen who cares. He said he replied to her, writing that he would personally continue to embrace the families of terror victims, but it never occurred to him that one day he would do the same to her orphaned children. The Itamar attack took place around 9 p.m. last night on the road between Itamar and Elon Moreh, near the village of Beit Farik. Military sources said that the car came under gunfire as it slowed down on a curve from another car passing it. One gunman reportedly used an M16 assault rifle and another a pistol, immediately killing Naama and mortally wounding Eitam. The father apparently tried to get out to rescue his children, but then collapsed in the street with his multiple gunshot wounds. Our paramedic described the scene as difficult. They were massacred right in front of their 4 children, said IDF spokesman Peter Lerner. Speaking to reporters after the attack and shortly after his address to the United Nations General Assembly, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said it was a difficult day for the state of Israel. Netanyahu said that Palestinian incitement over the issue of the Temple Mount is to blame for such heinous attacks of terror. He added that the killers knew they were murdering a mother and father while leaving their 4 children orphaned. The Prime Minister stressed he was coordinating further actions with the Defense Minister Moshe Ya'alon, and vowed that the security establishment will do its utmost to track down the perpetrators. He then lashed out at the Palestinian Authority for once again remaining silent and not immediately condemning the shooting in the same way that Israel denounced the Duma torching at the end of July. 4 members of the Dawabshe family subsequently died in that attack when their home in the Palestinian village of Duma was torched by suspected Jewish extremists. The army has rushed 4 battalions into Samaria overnight in pursuit of the terrorists who carried out last night's attack. Hundreds of troops were conducting intensive searches on the ground near the attack, sealing villages including Beit Farik near the scene of the shooting. The army said the reinforcements were also in order to prevent an escalation of violence in the area adjacent to the location of the attack. It is believed that the gunmen were able to flee into the Palestinian-controlled city of Nablus by a back road. Defense Minister Moshe Ya'alon visited the site of the attack, and he said the military, together with the Shin Bet, were doing everything they could to get their hands on the terrorists, and steps were being taken to prevent another attack. He also urged restraint, saying any attempt to stage revenge attacks would add fuel to the fire. Meanwhile, an armed wing of the Fatah claimed responsibility for the attack, saying it was their sacred duty to kill occupying settlers. This could not be immediately verified. Dozens of settlers held a series of protests condemning the attack. Demonstrators gathered at the scene of the attack as well as in the main intersections across Jerusalem. The head of the Samaria Regional Council, Yossi Dagan, said settlers will hold a protest outside the Prime Minister's residence in the capital until the government meets their demand for establishment of a new settlement and removes restrictions on the IDF when dealing with terror. Earlier today, there was a suspected price tag attack in the West Bank. A torched Palestinian car was found near Ramallah with graffiti reading, "Revenge Henkin Family," spray-painted on the wall next to it. UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon also condemned the murder of Eitam and Naama Henkin during a pre-scheduled meeting with the Prime Minister, which took place shortly after the incident. The top diplomat urged both sides to prevent any escalation, stressing that violence and provocations pose a danger to both Israeli and Palestinian civilians. At the same time, Ban called on Netanyahu to make, quote, significant policy changes that will have a concrete impact on the Palestinians and stop settlement activity in the West Bank. Last night's shooting attack in the West Bank's Binyamin region came on the heels of a separate stoning attack against the Israeli vehicle yesterday in the Gush Etzion region. In this attack, a mother and her baby daughter were lightly injured after they were hit by stones hurled against their car. The rest of the family traveling with them, including the mother, the father, and 2 other children, escaped without harm. The police arrested a 15-year-old Palestinian minor who confessed to throwing the stones at the vehicle. The Itamar attack occurred within hours after Prime Minister Netanyahu concluded his address to the UN General Assembly in what's already become known as the silence speech. Netanyahu charged the United Nations with hypocrisy and maintaining a deafening silence when it came to protecting the Jewish state. With defensive rhetoric, he targeted the Assembly for passing more resolutions against Israel for its handling of the Palestinians than against the Syrian government, which has been engaged in a 3-year civil war that has already claimed the lives of over 300,000 people. The Prime Minister fluently delivered the 40-minute address, which primarily focused on the dangers of Iran as the root of the terror in the Middle East and maintaining Israel's right to defend itself. The Prime Minister then stopped and stood quietly for 44 seconds, displaying the deafening silence of the world body as he denounced its actions without words.
70 years after the murder of 6 million Jews, Iran's rulers promised to destroy my country, murder my people, and the response from this body, the response from nearly every one of the governments represented here, has been absolutely nothing. Utter silence. Deafening silence. So here's my message to the rulers of Iran. Your plan to destroy Israel will fail. Israel will not permit any force on earth to threaten its future. And here's my message to all the countries represented here. Whatever resolutions you may adopt in this building, whatever decisions you may take in your capitals, Israel will do whatever it must do to defend our state and to defend our people. Stand with Israel, because Israel is not just defending itself. More than ever, Israel is defending you.
Toward the end of his speech, the Prime Minister responded to Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas' UN speech, calling him to renew negotiations without delay.
I am prepared to immediately resume direct peace negotiations with the Palestinian Authority without any preconditions whatsoever. Unfortunately, President Abbas said yesterday that he is not prepared to do this. Well, I hope he changes his mind, because I remain committed to a vision of 2 states for 2 peoples, in which a demilitarized Palestinian state recognizes the Jewish state.
Senior PLO official Hanan Ashrawi was quick to respond to Netanyahu's remarks, saying they were false and dishonest, blaming the collapse of the negotiations on Israel.
In a sense, all his statements about peace and seeking peace have nothing to do with reality, are actually the opposite of what has been doing. He's the one who walked out of the peace talks. Israel is the country that reneged on all its commitments and signed agreements. Israel is refusing to abide by international law, and then it turns around and it blames the Palestinians, who are its victims. Israel is a strong military power, holding a whole nation captive, and at the same time blaming its victim for its own belligerence and its own destructive policies.
For the 3rd day in a row, Russian warplanes have attacked targets in Syria. This time, Moscow said it hit a stronghold of the Islamic State near Raqqa, destroying a training camp and a vital command post. Reports from Syria say at least a dozen jihadists were killed. The Russian airstrikes continue even as the United States and members of the coalition against the Islamic State called on Moscow to immediately cease its attacks against Syrian opposition and civilians. In a statement, the 7 countries, including Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and Germany, warned the Russian attacks will escalate the conflict. Meanwhile, in Iraq, the Grand Ayatollah Ali al-Sistani called for a global war against Islamic State. This came a day after the Iraqi prime minister said he would welcome Russian airstrikes against the group on Iraqi soil. In local money matters, the shekel was down in foreign currency trading, while shares were mixed on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange on the last day of the trading week. Here are the late afternoon numbers. Taking a look at the weather, and the forecast for tomorrow is for partly cloudy skies with a slight rise in temperatures. Here's a look at the expected highs and lows at home and abroad for the next 24 hours. That's our broadcast for this afternoon. We hope you'll join us again tomorrow, when I'll be back here to bring you the latest breaking news from Israel. Please join us. I'm Ariel Sullivan, wishing you a peaceful evening and Shabbat Shalom from Jerusalem.